Welcome, everyone, to the all-new adventures of the Doctor Who Book Club podcast. This is Matt in Minnesota.
And this is Chris in South London.
And it's our first official episode. Hooray!
Hooray!
Our second take of our first official episode.
Hooray!
In that podcast tradition, we are...
Yes. In that I was doing the recording, however, I managed to capture your dulcet tones, Matt, but not mine. So, yep. Yay, well done me.
Darn, we have to talk about Doctor Who some more.
Yes. What book are we doing?
This month we're doing Engines of War by George Mann. It's unfortunately a little bit timely in that John Hurt has passed away, but it's the first and only War Doctor book that we have.
And it's George Mann's second of two Doctor Who novels, and the first is Paradox Lost, featuring the 11th Doctor, Amy and Rory. Which I can't say I've had the pleasure of reading. And he's also done a companion chronicle for Big Finish, which was the Piralis Effect. But neither of those works I've encountered before.
And the War Doctor appears in a series of Big Finish audios. John Hurt reprises his role. The final one, the final box set, just came out this week or last week from Big Finish, and then there was also a fan collection of short stories, some of which were by big-name authors. I think George Mann may have even contributed a short story to that collection called Seasons of War, which was a charity anthology. And then he also appeared in the graphic novels, right? Is that
from what I understand? I can't say I've read. So this is the only time that I've encountered the War Doctor outside of what we've seen on TV.
How did you read the story? Did you get the hardcover, or? I
had it on Kindle. Yeah.
How was that for you?
Yeah, it's all right. I quite like reading books on Kindle. It doesn't take up space. Yeah.
I listened to the audio narration by Nick Briggs, which you'll be hearing a little bit of later on in the podcast. The original Doctor Who Book Club podcast, which we should probably mention. If listeners want to go back and hear Eric and Sean cover 60 different books across 5 years from some of the earlier Doctor Who ranges, those podcasts are still up, and encourage you to listen to those if you haven't already and have come over from that show.
And there's some great interviews in there as well with the likes of Robert Smith with a question mark and Tudor so not the bloke from The Cure, alas.
Robert Smith.
So I suspect that The Cure might be Doctor Who fans. They kind of give that general vibe.
Shall we go ahead and get into the plot summary?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. The book, we should mention, is structured in 3 parts. Part 1 is called Moldox. Part 2, spoilers, is called Gallifrey. And part 3 is called Into the Eye. When I read books, I tend to do a little bit of self-spoiling in that I have to know how the book is structured, how many, if it's in parts or chapters, and how that's going to play out. So part 1, Moldox.
So we begin on the planet Moldox, which is an area of space dominated by this ghostly space structure, which is known as the Tantalus Eye. We may be hearing more from this as the book progresses.
Yeah, it's one of 12 planets that's orbiting this eye, and it reminded me a little bit of the Impossible Planet and the Satan Pit, where you have a planet orbiting like a non-star sort of structure, anomaly in this case.
Yeah, it's been home to a human colony that's now been invaded by the Daleks, and so we begin on page 1 with a whole host of Dalek action, which with no fault of the book whatsoever, but because I've spent quite a lot of time reading the New Adventures, I always find it sort of slightly surprising to see the Daleks being referenced directly rather than by allusion. But yeah. And
there's a space battle happening, and we get to see the Doctor kind of in command, leading an assault, and
we've got the battle TARDISes all kind of attacking a Dalek fleet, and there's some very kind of cool ramming actions as the kind of TARDIS rams its way through these Dalek sources. And it's fair to say that the TARDISes are used very physically in this book, I think.
Yeah, and one of the cool images that George Mann kind of evoked on the page, a few of the TARDISes get hit and explode, but it's a
Mm.
matter of their contents kind of unfolding into three-dimensional space. So he paints this image of almost like a flower blossoming as these TARDISes are meeting their untimely end.
Yeah, it's a very cool and interesting metaphor image that I don't think that I've seen before on a TV show, and I don't remember reading it in the books either. But I'm sure I'll be corrected if I'm wrong. Um,
Well, that's happening above the planet. We cut to the planet below, Muldox, and we see Cinder and one of her compatriots in the resistance against the Daleks being, I guess, ambushed by 4 Skaro degradations, which is one of the types of things from the Time War that the 10th Doctor mentions in the End of Time, along with like the Nightmare Child and a whole host of other things from Russell T Davies' imagination about, about what's in the Time War. But we see these Skaro degradations, and the special weapons Dalek that we've seen before in Remembrance of the Daleks could almost be considered one of those. It's like a mutated Dalek with a different casing. One that looks like the special weapons Dalek, which is a temporal weapon Dalek, and we see it use its weapon in a moment. And then the other ones are like a glider and like a spider-like Dalek, which seemed to be the in the 90s the design.
Yes, yeah. When there were so many efforts to try to kind of bring the show back, it seemed that everybody wanted to move away from the pepper pot design and have spidery Daleks. I remember reading an interview with Russell T Davies and I've forgotten the name. Anyway, another author who were having a chat in the Fitzroy Tavern, which is a pub in London where quite a few of the Doctor Who folk hang out, and Russell T Davies apparently was quite insistent. Yeah, I bring the Daleks back, and they're proper. Yeah. And some of the Daleks as well. We've got the transparent Daleks, which are sort of very reminiscent of the ones from Revelation of the Daleks.
Cinder's companion or fellow soldier gets hit by a weapon from one of these temporal weapons Daleks, and it has the effect of erasing him from history. And Cinder begins to lose her memory of him. And while that's happening, and the Daleks are sort of bearing down on her, that's when, from above, the TARDIS crashes, and we have our first meeting of Cinder and the Doctor.
It's quite a cool scene because you've got sort of Cinder hearing noises from this blue box, which is sort of lying on its side, and eventually we get kind of its occupant climbing out, and she has to kind of flee inside because there's still some kind of Daleks going around sort of shooting things and doing Dalek-y stuff. And as she kind of goes inside, we have our kind of typical variation on "it's bigger on the inside," and she's saying "it's the right way up," or words to that effect, which I thought was quite that's quite. I mean, it's a long running gag. But it's a good gag and it works.
Yeah, it reminded me of the scene from the 11th Hour where Amelia Pond tosses the Doctor the rope and climbs out of it.
And when Cinder actually kind of gets inside, she realises this is a TARDIS, and this chap's probably a Time Lord, and she then it's made quite clear that she's a little bit anti-Time Lord, I would say, or at least certainly she's heard bad things.
Yeah, her reaction to the Doctor reminded me a lot of Cass from The Night of the Doctor and how she reacted to the 8th Doctor, Paul McGann, when she first met him. So the Doctor and Cinder dematerialize. We should mention that Cinder's carrying a Dalek gun that's functional, although the Doctor thinks that the power pack has been drained, but that's not the case.
So the TARDIS is obviously taken a bit of a battering from the Daleks, and it's kind of needing to rest for a bit. And the Doctor and Cinder have a conversation about kind of what the Daleks are up to. And Cinder says that the Daleks have been taking lots of prisoners, which seems a bit unusual, given the usual modus operandi. They decide to kind of head off to the nearest city, this place called Andor, which is apparently where the Daleks are keeping quite a few of their prisoners, because the Doctor's very curious as to what's going on.
And we also get a scene of the former governor of Moldok's, who had worked with the Daleks during the occupation. She gets brought in, and the weapon that obliterated Cinder's companion also is used on her, and I think really just to show in the audience how it works. And she's also erased from history, so
Yeah.
kind of a one-off little scene.
There's no mention even of her absence later on.
Everyone forgot about her.
Yes, yes. Well, she was a collaborator. So, and also, I think it's fair to say that the folk that we're encountering are fairly kind of ground level. We don't see any kind of like real high ups in the resistance. But
So when the Doctor and Cinder are back at the resistance camp, the Doctor sees the person who it was at Finch, the guy who was the other soldier.
Finch is already, yeah. They encounter Coin, who's as a just sort of battle hardened soldier, and his recollection is that Cinder had gone off on her own, and gives her a bit of a dressing down.
Yeah, sorry, I meant Finch's bedding or
Yes, yeah. So they find kind of Finch's sort of like, yeah, his stuff. But yeah, so it's interesting how this kind of wiping you from the time stream works. Your memory gets removed from people, but sort of stuff that you've done or bought seems to be around. Maybe, I don't know.
yeah, it's like the physical evidence of your existence is still around, even though the memory of you isn't, which is
Yeah.
strange.
So having kind of gathered their provisions, they kind of head on off to Andor, and Andor is quite a sort of a multicultural place. They talk about there being kind of churches, mosques, skyscrapers, all linked by these walkways, and the Dalek domes are sort of centered around this kind of old school. So we get a little bit of sort of wandering around deserted streets, and then we find our heroes stumble across some Daleks who are about to get ready to execute some prisoners. And lo and behold, said prisoners kind of get wiped from the time stream as if they were no innocent way to Finch.
Yeah, and the Doctor witnesses it, but he's able to retain his memory. But Cinder is thinking like it was, I don't remember the number, but it was like a group of 10. 4 were erased, and then she said, "Oh, it's just a group of 6." And the Doctor, "No, there used to be 10."
And so that's kind of tipping the Doctor off that there's something weird going on here. So they then have a little bit of a debate as to how they're going to get into the kind of the Dalek sources, and the Doctor decides to just kind of go and use the front door, which is rather doctory. And so they kind of wander up a side ramp, and we then discover they encounter a closed door, and which Cinder sort of can't open at first, but the Doctor sort of says just basically kind of walk up sort of arrogantly and sort of in a determined way, and lo and behold it opens, which is a nice insight into the kind of the Dalek mindset. And so whilst we're wandering around in the saucer, they stumble upon a whole room of humans that are being mutated into kind of Daleks, sort of like but within Dalek casings. And again, it's a little bit like Revelation. I think it's fair to say there's quite a few nods back to classic Doctor Who stories in this book,
and new series as well. You get human Dalek hybrids in a number of different stories.
Yes,
one set in New York City, and of course the one with the reality TV shows and the Daleks zapping humans and using their parts there too. And that's after they come across a screen that's been left on where they learn the whole Dalek plan about how they're going to be harnessing the Tantalus Eye and the power to create a large scale version of the temporal cannon, which they intend to use on at first the systems in the Tantalus Eye, but eventually I think their goal is to use it against Gallifrey.
It's fair to say the Dalek security protocol seems to be a little bit shoddy. They're leaving this kind of this top secret information on for anybody that wants into the room to see, and also there's a reference because the Doctor sort of says that they're using the outer corridors to wander around because the Daleks are in the inner corridors. But I wonder what they're up to. I mean, surely there should be a Dalek watching a security cam or something, or maybe they're so confident that nobody would be sneaking in. Maybe that's the line. I don't know.
But then the
Uh,
Daleks do eventually discover them, right? After the
yeah. Oh, yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. They do. They do. After we've found a kind of like an autopsy room where we see the Daleks doing some lovely experiments upon their own degradations, we then move across a walkway into another saucer, and still no Daleks. But we discover there's a hatchery for some new Carlets, and have the Doctor kind of musing about. He starts thinking about Genesis of the Daleks, and do I have the right? Seen as sort of whether or not he should kill the Carlets, and so he kind of feels that last time round he might have made the wrong decision.
one of several references to classic series that George Mann includes
Yes.
in
Yeah.
in this story. Yeah. So they cross into the other saucer. They find
Yeah.
the hatchery, and I think it's at that point that they get discovered by some Daleks finally.
Yes, yes. Well, after they've gone into a store cupboard where where they pick up some Dalek weapons because you need to store them in a store cupboard. It reminds me, possibly, maybe I'm being a bit harsh, but it reminds me of, is it the Ark that has the security kitchen in it? Yeah, I am being a bit harsh. I'm being a bit mean. Yes. So when Doctor Who sometimes kind of goes to very specific things like store cupboards, I do find quite bizarre. But yeah, so they pick up a time cannon there, and which is very handy because when the Dalek appears, sort of about a page or so later, they try it on the Dalek and realise that it doesn't work on them. But fortunately, Cinder's sort of Dalek ray gun does, and so we have quite a bit of sort of running, shooting, escaping, and all that malarkey to get back into the courtyard. And then they remember that there's a whole host of prisoners that they've seen. The folk that are being kind of. Yeah, where are the prisoners from? Do we see the prisoners?
The other prisoners start to revolt, and then they're in the process of they're trying to overpower the Daleks, but we don't
Yeah,
really find out whether or not they succeed or not.
no.
The Doctor and Cinder dash off to the TARDIS, and
Yes, yes, leave them to it.
yeah,
Yes, yes. I think it's fair to say that this War Doctor, he's realised what the scale of the problem is, and he's being possibly maybe a little bit pragmatic. I mean, whilst he did rescue the prisoners, he did kind of leave them to an extent to their fate. But we get that lovely little scene where he sort of says that humanity can kind of achieve great things. I'm paraphrasing wildly. When you've got this ginormous melee between the humans and the Daleks, so yeah, it's quite a cool scene.
we get a final scene which kind of acts as the cliffhanger if you want to look at it as
Yes, yes,
part one, part two, and part three.
yeah.
We get a scene with the Daleks' Eternity Circle, which is a group of Daleks.
High level managers, yes.
Yeah. That are in charge, and the Dalek Emperor is there. They talk about the weapon is basically ready to use and it's online. They detected the Doctor and they realize the Doctor's involved. They say it's too late and they're ready to use it. And they also talk about the Predator will soon be in their possession. Was a term that the 11th Doctor used to refer to himself in
Yes.
Asylum of the Daleks. Reminded me of was it the Oncoming Storm, and there were some other references to the Doctor and some of the Virgin adventures.
Yes, Kafarak Gatri, I think, is that. I've probably mispronounced that horribly, but I think that's what they would call them in the McCoy era. And basically, one of the Daleks is described as almost chuckling, and it very much. Yeah, you can imagine there's like a white cat being stroked somewhere out of shot. It is that kind of sort of. Oh, it's not quite Bond villainous, but yes, they are confident. Let's put it that way.
So then we get to part two, which is called Gallifrey, and we're introduced to Karlax, who's monitoring several different Dalek kind of battles that are Time Lord Dalek battles that are happening throughout time and space. And he's summoned by the Castellan, and they go meet, and all of a sudden alarms start going off, and a ship's
Yes.
approaching, and they're worried that it's some sort of Trojan horse from the Daleks, but it turns out to be the Doctor.
Yes, yes, and so when the blue police box arrives, Carlax rather wonderfully says, "Oh, it's him." And so Cinder, while she's delighted to finally kind of get off Mordock's, she really isn't enamoured with the prospect of meeting the other Time Lords, who she thinks will be kind of condescending and snooty. And yeah, she will not be disappointed, it's fair to say.
And after some back and forth, then the Doctor demands an audience with Rassilon, and Carlax takes him to the War Room, which we first see in the 50th anniversary special, and that's the kind of the council chamber in the basement where
Yes.
where the real decisions are made, while the High Council meets upstairs, and while the end of time is taking place in another room.
Yes. And Cinder describes it as being understated, which I don't know whether that was kind of a little bit of a pop at the production values of the 50th. Yeah, I don't know, is it understated? Because when you look at sort of photos of these kind of real life in the White House, sort of when there was footage of kind of Obama watching various missions and things. I don't know whether that's technically a war room, but that looked like just a regular sort of like office room with like a giant screen on. So maybe Cinder has some very high standards. But yeah, in the war room, we meet Rassilon, and it's Timothy Dalton.
It's a James Bond, and he's wearing his glove, his
Yes.
which is kind of a mirror or counterpart to what the Daleks have developed, because it essentially does the same thing. It
Yes.
erases you from the timeline.
Yes, yes. These comparisons between Time Lords and Daleks are not going to go away. So as we continue, and then there's the kind of a reference to the Master having kind of gone off sort of AWOL, and the Doctor had been on a mission to try to track him down, and as yet unsuccessful, which kind of made me wonder, as if sort of, we were going to see either Anthony Ainley or Derek Jacobi or a snake appear later on.
Yeah, any of the above.
Yes.
Yeah, when he said that, I had Derek Jacobi in my mind in terms of which master I was thinking of from Utopia, but yeah, it could have been any of those, or someone else really.
And so the Doctor kind of gives Rassilon a bit of a briefing as to what's been kind of going down, and then they're ushered into the High Council chamber, which you may remember from the Five Doctors, and we get the kind of the council gather, and it's made very clear that there is an empty chair with an exquisite carving. I did wonder whether that was going to be the Masters. Or was supposed to be the Masters.
Yeah, it could have been the Masters. It could have been the woman we see in The End of Time, which Russell T Davies and Julie Gardner refer to as the Doctor's mother.
Yeah.
She's kind of covering her eyes in almost like a weeping angel pose. And then, or it could have been even Romana, I suppose.
Yeah, because there's also the unnamed young woman with a black bob hair that we see as being one of the cancers, and I wondered whether that was supposed to be a version of Romana. Who knows? Because she doesn't appear again. But
we get quite a bit of Romana in the Big Finish Gallifrey series, as it kind of tiptoes right up to the edge of the Time War. We see how Romana escapes E-space in the Apocalypse element, which is one of the very early Big Finish stories. If you consider Big Finish canon.
Yeah.
Which I do, I guess.
Yeah.
Unless it's contradicted by something
Yes.
else.
Oh, canon.
That's a whole other podcast.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think if you try and figure out, even just within the TV show, if you try and make it kind of consistent in your head, you'll go mad. If you just think about Atlantis and the various different versions of Atlantis you see. So, yeah, just enjoy it as a story. What was the line that Alan Moore said about at the start of Whatever Happened to Superman, which is his thing. his farewell to the original version of Superman Before Crisis, and he sort of says that this is an imaginary story, but aren't they all?
Yeah, and it reminds me a little bit of the lyric from the Mystery Science Theater 3000 opening theme, where they say, "It's just a show. You should really just relax," which is
Yes,
in reference
yes,
in how the main character eats and breathes in space. So
yes, yes, yes. Just enjoy it.
yeah,
The council are now kind of getting into a full-on row with the Doctor, as always seems to be the case whenever he rocks up on Gallifrey. And they start to discuss various strategies and weapons that they can use, including the moment, which you may remember from Dave the Doctor, and also something called the Tier of Isha.
Aisha, I think is how
Isha.
I
Isha.
think that's how Nick Briggs pronounced it, at least in the audio narration. And they make reference to all these weapons being in, I think they call it the Omega Arsenal, which reference to Omega from the Three Doctors. And
Who doesn't rock up? I must say, I was always half expecting him at one point.
everyone else is in this book.
Yes. So the proposal is to fire the tear into the Tantalus Eye, which will destroy the Daleks, but it will also destroy the entire system. So collateral damage somewhat. And the Doctor is very much against this idea, as is Cinder. And Rassilon starts to get a little bit prickly about the Doctor's human pet. And we basically, whilst they're waiting for Rassilon to make his final decision, they kind of look across the city, and you can basically hear the Murray Gold music in your ears. And we have these memory lanterns that are being released, and so that's because a lot of the people of Gallifrey fear that they're about to die. They're releasing their memories so that these can live on even if they die. Which is a lovely romantic image that's somewhat crushed by the Doctor, saying that the memories will break up into time winds, and so it's all a bit pointless.
Yeah, it reminded me of like a Japanese lantern lighting ceremony, or the white boxes that were seen in The Doctor's Wife and the War Games. Was it the memory cubes? Similar sort of.
It's a beautiful image.
Yeah.
And so it kind of breaks up all of the kind of like the political rowing, which we have some more, because the Doctor and Cinder get summoned to an audience of Rassilon, who says, "Yeah, I'm going to use the tear," and the Doctor compares Rassilon to basically being close to a Dalek, and Rassilon then lets slip that there's a possibility engine he has that lets him see possible futures, and that's going to be the final arbiter.
And that's where the Doctor starts kind of following Rassilon.
Yeah.
And he observes him using the harp from that we had seen previously in the Five Doctors. Waits a bit and then follows him, and the teleport is set for the tower. And there we see Rassilon, and the Doctor's kind of watching in the shadows of the catacombs.
Yes. Yeah.
We see Barusa come up out of the altar that he was last seen, kind of turned into a stone face on. Which I, as an aside, I wonder if they got that technology from the Weeping Angels. Now that
interesting. Yeah.
Barusa, the possibility engine, who he's kind of is kind of strapped to a gurney. I'm thinking like almost like a Clockwork Orange sort of imagery,
and he's being forced to continually regenerate, and so which is quite horrific, as because certainly the books have made it very clear over the years that regeneration is not a piece of cake. It's very, very painful and traumatic experience, and he does appear to be in agony, and he confirms what the Doctor's saying about the Daleks is right. And then, rather charitably, he mentions, "Oh, the Doctor's in the room with us," which is lovely of him. So there's another row between the Doctor and Rassilon, and Rassilon is again compared to a Dalek, and Rassilon decides to ask Barusa about what actually will happen if the tear is used. And he says that the eye will close, the Daleks will fall, but the era of the Time Lords will still come to an end. But Rassilon decides, yeah, he's got to use the tear.
Barusa says there, I mean, still could come true,
Mm,
or does come true in terms of
yeah,
Gallifrey getting locked into, the events of the 50th. I mean, that all
yeah,
still kind of plays out
yeah,
as he predicts there.
yeah. He's not wrong.
So, while all this is happening in the
Mm.
Dark Tower, Cinder's left alone on Gallifrey, and she tries to explore a little bit, and she gets stopped.
Always a good idea. Always a good idea for a Doctor Who companion to just go off for a wander, because what could go wrong?
in, in, in this case, quite a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
Cinder gets stopped by Karlax, and Karlax repeatedly throughout the story is kind of referred to Cinder as the Doctor's pet. He doesn't see
Yeah.
her as being with kind of as like a lesser, lower life form almost, and he decides, well, might as well experiment on you,
Yes.
and he
Yes.
takes her to the mind probe.
Not the Mind Probe.
Yeah.
Yes. Five Doctors fans may remember it. Yes. And so her memories kind of come flooding back, which include the Daleks kind of attacking her family in the kitchen. She basically has no idea whether her relatives survived because she just had to run. And we see various other stages in her life, including her first kiss with a female soldier.
It was almost unremarkable in that it was
Yeah.
just presented as one of many images, and nice too that this is yet another companion who falls on the LGBTQ spectrum. We've had let's see,
Captain Jack.
Captain Jack and Sam from was
Izzy.
Izzy.
Izzy from the Eighth Doctor comics, and arguably Clara. Certainly, well, she implies that she and Jane Austen are very close friends.
And also Chris Shea from
Yeah,
the New
from the New
Adventures.
Adventures. Yes,
From the wilderness years, or as Paul Cornell likes to call them, the theme park years,
yes.
given the amount of output during that time.
Yeah, certainly we had more Doctor Who in the wilderness years than we had last year, but that's another matter. And she then eventually remembers Finch, who was her compatriot who was killed right at the start of the book. When it switched off, Karlax, because he's a nasty piece of work, expresses pity that Cinder's managed to survive. Cinder says that the Doctor will kill him for this, and then Karlax sneers and says that the Doctor doesn't like to get his hands dirty. Karlax is a piece of work. So next up, the Doctor and Rassilon arrive back in the chamber, with Rassilon sort of saying, yeah, I'm definitely going to use the tear. And then the Doctor realises that Cinder's kind of gone missing, and comes back and has a little bit of an argument with Carla. And then the Castellan plays the harp in the chamber and reveals that Cinder's been kept in what seems to be kind of Barusa's old hidey hole from the Five Doctors.
The time scoop room, I think.
Yes, yeah, and we also, somebody does just shout the mind probe. How much, if you haven't seen the Five Doctors, if you were a new series fan, how much of this you'd be kind of getting? But then again, I think the Five Doctors is one of those classic Doctor Who stories that probably a lot of people have seen because it's a nice kind of convenient sort of entry point.
I had mentioned in our episode 0 that I had come in with the TV movie, so for me to go back and catch up on all of Classic Who, it wasn't airing like on PBS locally in the Twin Cities at the time, so I had to catch up on VHS, and so one of the first ones I bought was the Five Doctors because I thought, well, there's 5 of them in it.
Yeah. Yeah, because it was the second story I ever saw. I've seen it on PBS in DC.
Oh.
Yes, yeah, they were doing a fundraising night, which if you read kind of Doctor Who magazine in the 80s, you kind of get the impression that every night is a fundraising night on PBS stations.
Yeah, they have quite a few pledge drives throughout the
year. Yes, and possibly more so at the moment.
Yeah. So the Rassilon ends up locking Cinder and the Doctor in a cell
and impounding the TARDIS. And in the cell that they wake up in, or the Cinder wakes up in, it's kind of made clear it's very kind of medieval. There's no pipes. It's just stone walls and a slab. Yeah, and the Doctor basically has kind of almost given up at this point because apparently his sonic screwdriver won't work on the door. and also Cinder sort of says, "Nice place you've got here," which makes me think of the line that the various doctors kind of use at each other when they see the other's TARDIS, sort of particularly Dave the Doctor, as well as in the Three Doctors. Does it get used in the Five Doctors? I can't remember. So, but Cinder realises that rather fortuitously she had a bracelet on her that I don't remember being mentioned before, and that the guards hadn't removed it. So she uses it to pick the lock, and somewhat surprises the Doctor. So they go out and they're kind of loose in the kind of the tunnels.
Yep. And then the Doctor uses his sonic screwdriver as a homing beacon to try and find the TARDIS, and that leads them to the almost like a. It reminded me of the scene from The Doctor's Wife with all the different TARDIS pieces on the home planet. Or is it called home? It reminded me of that, kind of like an elephant's graveyard.
Yeah. And so, because you see one that's been kind of cracked open, there's one disguised as a Dalek saucer, there's a galleon, there's a torpedo, and we then have a little bit of a shootout as kind of like the guards come in. The Doctor and Cinder manage to kind of find their way to the TARDIS, and as they're trying to kind of take off, the Castellan appears on the monitor to basically say, no, we're not letting you leave. But yeah, so the Doctor appeals to the Castellan's conscience and convinces him that he doesn't want to have the fact that the tear is used as being kind of his responsibility. So the Castellan decides to let them leave.
When I was thinking of the Castellan in this and some of the other scenes, what was originally coming to mind for me was the guy from the 50th anniversary special who later regenerates in I think Hellbent, but that's a different character, right? That's the general, is that?
Yeah, because I think he's a general. Yes. Okay. Yeah, I was just trapped with the Castellan from the Five Doctors, who is definitely killed at the end of it. Anyway, we know the type. So Karlax transmats to the Tower of Rassilon to break the news himself to Rassilon about what the fact that the Doctor managed to escape, and he also encounters Barusa. This still doesn't quite put him off the idea of working for Rassilon, and almost as like a punishment, Rassilon decides to send Karlax after the Doctor, making it clear that it's not worth returning if he kind of comes back either empty-handed or with the Doctor still alive somewhere.
Or if not, don't come back at all.
Yeah, because the way this is structured, with its 3 parts, it did remind me very much of kind of like a 3-part sort of TV story in the modern day, kind of like Utopia, etc. The way that it's been done.
There's certainly, I think, too much action in each part to fit into like a 25-minute story, but a 45-minute story, like you said. I think it fits almost perfectly. All right, so part 3, Into the Eye. Mm-hmm. The Doctor and Cinder are in the TARDIS, or the Castellan has allowed them to escape, and the Doctor finds 2 tracking devices on Cinder, which he dismantles, and Cinder goes and has a little bit of a wander.
Yes, kind of going through the usual kind of odd rooms that you get in the TARDIS, and there's the jungle and various other kind of crazy stuff.
And she comes. This is where she changes into Greenpeace.
Yes,
teacher. I thought might have been left over from Sam, which the 8th Doctor previously. But you
sort of particularly kind of like for a bit of a deep cut, and like, is that David Banks? Which is David Banks was the theatre doctor for about a month or 2
in the Ultimate Adventure as understudy.
Yeah. Earlier on this month, I went to my local theatre, and there's a blue plaque on the wall that says that because it's where the Ultimate Adventure started. It was where the first performance was, and kind of commemorating John Pertwee.
That's wonderful.
Which is that was kind of cool. Yeah, it was utterly unexpected. But it was basically said John Pertwee performed here. I thought you could probably do that with most theatres in London, but kind of the TARDIS at the moment is it's in the kind of the time vortex, and so the Doctor decides to kind of go to the Tantalus spiral, and and as soon as they emerge from the vortex, they come under attack from some battle TARDISes, and this leads the Doctor to conclude that there's got to be another tracking device, which is probably Cinder. And we then realise that Karlax is listening into the TARDIS in the way that Time Lords often seem to do.
The scene from the Stephen Moffat The Curse of the Fatal Death
Yes.
there
Yeah.
in terms of listening in.
Yeah, because it does make me wonder just how I don't think that the book is tongue in cheek, but I do wonder whether sort of some of these things are meant to be kind of enjoyed in a sort of not really meta level, but
Not quite a panto vibe, but
yeah,
I do get like an undercurrent of like that this is a classic series story almost
yes,
more so than a new series story. And then the battle TARDISes attack, and with time torpedoes, which create almost like a stasis bubble around the TARDIS, and then at the same time that happens, Dalek stealth ships show up,
conveniently.
picking that as an opportune time to strike,
Yeah.
and they start attacking all the TARDISes.
Yes, and you have some more scenes of the kind of the contents of the TARDISes unfolding as they're blown up, which is it's pretty cool as an image. And then the Doctor let slip that actually the time torpedo hadn't really affected the TARDIS. He was just doing it as a bit of a ruse. And as they're about to flee, he sort of sees someone floating around in the console room ruins, and decides to kind of go and rescue the survivor. And they sort of materialise around it. And it turns out, yay, it's Karlax. Da. They pick him up and take him into the Zero Room to regenerate.
The Doctor's not sure if
Yes.
the next Karlax will be better, and
Yes,
so he wants to give him a chance, which is a nice Doctor sentiment to express.
But he does also explain to Cinder that the Zero Room is essential in the regeneration process. And I was like, apart from in Castra Valva, it's not really. But,
Yeah, maybe
but still, maybe it was a white lie.
I wonder too if because didn't they get him in there before he started regenerating? So I wonder if you start regenerating in the Zero Room, if that lessens the effects of any post-regenerative stress or anything. I wonder.
But makes you less of a pain. Karlaxis, yes. Sorry. Yes, we complete that out. So there's now a bit of a full-on conflict between the Time Lord flotilla and Daleks, and the Doctor is able conveniently to realise which of the TARDISes contains the tear and materialises within that TARDIS, which is run by a Commander Partheus. And Partheus's TARDIS has a bridge that feels very Star Trek. And Partheus is also, he's described in such a way that I can only picture Brian Blessed. They then have a little bit of a fight, the Doctor and Partheus, because it's fair to say the War Doctor, he's quite a scrappy, argumentative Doctor.
He's very physical. It reminded me a lot of the Third Doctor and his Venusian Nikito.
But I mean, this is a kind of a desperate man who, haven't been kind of forced to do sort of desperate things that don't come naturally to him.
And they have to. And I don't know if is it the tier is primed and it's ready to go, or why they have to deploy it. But the Doctor ends up jumping forward to the end of the universe, really.
Yes, yeah.
Which is getting a little crowded if you think of the number of stories set there. So presumably while this is happening, the 12th Doctor and me are watching, the War Doctor launch the tier. I think Zagreus is happening in another corner, and
Douglas Adams is running a restaurant. Yeah, it's somewhat quieter at the Big Bang, but that might change for the next book we go for. So the tier is used, and there's a little bit of a debate as to kind of like, well, what are we going to use to stop the Daleks? And the Doctor says he's going to kind of wing it, effectively. And Parthius is he whilst he feels that the Doctor is a good man, he kind of thinks, yeah, you're going to need to leave my ship now. And quite how Parthius is going to kind of write this up in any reports.
Parthius orders them to leave, I think.
He does. He
Yeah.
does. He does. And
That brings us to our dramatic reading for the month, where the Doctor and Cinder land on Gallifrey, but not where you might expect. We're going to do something a little different and play a very short excerpt, under fair use for review purposes, from the BBC audio adaptation of the novel performed by Nicholas Briggs, who also provides the voice of the Daleks. The BBC Books audio narrations, if you've not heard them, feature music and sound effects to help round out the listening experience. The Engines of War audio is available for purchase wherever audiobooks are sold, including on CD, iTunes, and other download services, and may also be available as a streaming selection on Audible. Let's have a listen.
The TARDIS materialized on a bluff above a desolate, wild landscape. After a moment, the door opened and Cinder emerged, bracing herself against the sharp bite of the wind. Her hair whipped up into her face, her eyes streamed, and she found herself wrapping her arms around her body, trying to retain the warmth. She heard the Doctor close the TARDIS door behind her, and looked round to see him standing there, surveying the moorland below them. As far as the eye could see, fields of straw-like grass and heather, punctuated by the occasional clump of trees, dominated the view. The sky was a crisp, pale blue, shot through with wisps of cloud. "I thought you said we were going back to Gallifrey," she said. "Ah," replied the Doctor. "Yes, I should explain." Cinder raised an expectant eyebrow, putting her hands on her hips. "Well?" "This is Gallifrey," he said. "At least in a sense. It's a small pocket of Gallifreyan wilderness, cordoned off in a temporal bubble. The Time Lords know it affectionately as the Death Zone." He grinned. "Pretty inhospitable place, really," he said. "Wonderful," said Cinder. "The Death Zone." She stamped her feet, feeling exposed up there in the hillside. "Remind me why we're here again?" "The Death Zone used to be the place where unlucky participants were co-opted to play the game of Rassilon, pitted in a life-or-death battle against a variety of alien species, forcibly scooped from their natural habitats," said the Doctor, ignoring her question. "And here's me thinking the Time Lords were good guys," said Cinder sarcastically. "It was a long time ago, back in the first age of Rassilon. He built his tomb here." The Doctor turned on the spot, pointing to a black spire in the distance, jutting from the earth at the foot of a mountain. "There," he said. "The Dark Tower." "His tomb?" said Cinder. "But he's not dead. I met him, as much as I wish I hadn't." "It's complicated," said the Doctor. "Rassilon is essentially immortal. In ancient times he gave up corporeal form, and for millennia resided here in his tomb, worshipped as a once and future king. He was resurrected back in the early days of the war, however, when the Time Lords realized they needed a different sort of leader." "I can see it's done them the world of good," said Cinder. "Quite," replied the Doctor. He looked downcast. "You still haven't answered my question," she said. "What question?" "Why we're here?" "We're here to commit a jailbreak," said the Doctor. "Rassilon has someone trapped in the tower. Someone whose help we need. His name is Barusa. We're going to help him to escape."
Okay, so the Doctor and Cinder, as we've just heard, have arrived in the Death Zone, and they're making their way to the Tower of Rassilon in the distance.
And they encounter three more Time Lords in a cave, and they're just like Barusa, kind of changing between sort of past and kind of future incarnations. their early experiments of Rassilon. And so Cinder refers to them as the interstitials.
And they seem to be in a constant state of regenerative flux
Yeah.
as well. They also got chased by a giant dinosaur briefly.
Yes.
But they ran into this cave, and there's something else in the cave as well.
Yes, there are various kind of cave paintings, and you've got the Doctor next to a woman with blonde hair and a tall red flower that I didn't recognise at the time, but you suggested to me that that's Rose, and I think you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think whether it's Rose or whether it's the moment coming up, or
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the 50th, or if it's Bad
yeah.
Wolf, or all of the above. But it's
Yes,
I think
yeah.
it's meant to be Rose. But there's some other things on the
Mm.
wall too, right? There's
Yeah, because we've got the thin man with long curly hair. That's almost certainly got to be Tom Baker's Doctor, and man with a cape and bouffant white hair running from a silver robot. So that's got to be John Pertwee saying hello to the Raston robot from the Five Doctors. Does make you wonder why they were chased by a lizard and not a yeti.
the time skip was busy picking up
Yes,
all
yes.
sorts of things.
Maybe the Yeti have rights issues. But yeah.
Yeah, that could be because this come no, this came out around the time of the Snowmen, or
Yeah.
end of series 7, where the Great Intelligence was the villain. So maybe you
But
never know.
but they don't use the Yeti though, do they? But then again, yes. How effective? How scary would the Yeti be to a modern audience? There's one very crucial painting is that of a woman with red hair lying still in the TARDIS, and Cinder kind of thinks that might be her.
Make their way to the tower, and they rescue Barusa. They're basically carrying him out on almost like a stretcher condition.
And whilst they carry him out, they see various more interstitials kind of lighting the way to the TARDIS, and this kind of this orange glow, which is quite a sinister but beautiful image. It's one of these things that George Mann does occasionally kind of sort of put into the book, these quite striking images. And the TARDIS now kind of leaves the Death Zone with kind of Barusa in tow.
And they return to the Tantalus Eye, where they see a large cannon being charged up.
Yes.
Death Star style.
Yes, yes, yeah. Yes. It's a wee bit Death Star. The Doctor decides to surrender to the Daleks, but that's the only way that he thinks that he can get anywhere near the eye.
And the Daleks are all for that because they have a special place prepared for him.
Yes.
As they referenced earlier, the Predator Dalek. So imagine almost like a Davros style casing, or where it opens up and there's room. It's a larger size Dalek, and there's room enough for the Doctor to sit in it, almost like a Pandorica chair.
Speaking of Davros, where is he in all of this?
I don't know. He was resurrected as well, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But it could have been at a different point in the Time War.
Hey ho. Yeah, so as you were saying, they intend for the Doctor to be kind of placed inside this casing and become the Dalek himself. And sort of the Doctor and Cinder realise that this is it. This is Journey's End, and then suddenly the TARDIS kind of materialises around them. It's being piloted by Karlax.
the newly regenerated Karlax, who's had a change of face.
Yes, but not a change of character, and still determined to kill the Doctor. He brings out a gun and sort of shoots, and Cinder pushes the Doctor out of the way, and she kind of catches the blow kind of in its full force, and is sort of and is quite seriously wounded, and we then have a kind of a sort of row with the Doctor and Karlax, and the Doctor decides rather wonderfully to dematerialise, but leaving Karlax in front of all the Daleks. It's kind of the fate he deserves.
That reminded me of the scene from Blink when the TARDIS dematerializes around Sally Sparrow and
Yeah.
leaving her with the angels kind of encircling her but frozen. But in this case,
Yes.
the Daleks start exterminating. So,
Yes.
but
Yes.
yeah, we do have that scene then in the TARDIS that was depicted on the wall where Cinder has taken the shot from the gun to save the Doctor, and we get that image then.
So the Doctor is having to kind of he thinks he might have a plan to save her despite the fact that she's died, and he kind of thinks it's going to be sort of Barusa is going to do it. But so at this point, I was kind of having flashbacks to the Doctor Who TV movie, which also features a companion lying dead on the TARDIS floor.
And I was going back to the Richard Donner Superman film at the end, with the where Lois is dead and kind of wants to spin time backwards.
When I watched that with my wife a few years ago, it was the first time that she'd ever seen that movie, and I managed to convince her that it's a great tragedy. Lois dies. We've got the TARDIS is now kind of flying into the Tantalus Eye, and the Doctor is insisting that Barusa makes real a kind of a timeline in in which kind of Cinder would live and kind of like the Daleks would all die, but then realizes.
We should mention at this point that Bruce is kind of glowing even more so, being so close to the eye. I was picturing in my mind Rose as kind of Bad Wolf, and that she can see all the different possible futures and can reach into them and actually manipulate them. Whereas before, I think Barusa was just able to view different realities, and now he has the ability to affect them.
Barusa sort of manages to kind of, as I say, Rose style, wipe the Eternity Circle and Dalek fleet and everything kind of out of existence. However, he's not able to bring back Cinder. He kind of vanishes, doesn't he? Kind of burnt up by all of the effort. Poor Cinder is no more.
Yeah, and then the Doctor lands on Muldox and finds the remains of Cinder's family, and it takes Cinder's body as well and has a burial ceremony at Cinder's old house. At the gravesite, he makes one final promise to her that he's gonna end the war, and he utters the phrase "no more."
Yes.
So, and there we have it. That was Engines of War. I think it, in terms of setting, I think the references to Rose and the moment and the no more, it makes me think that this is placed really at the very tail end of his timeline, almost acting as an immediate prequel to the 50th anniversary story. I suppose it could be moved around a little bit, but yeah, it seems to be tied a lot closer to the end of the War Doctor's life.
Yes, yeah, it certainly is. It's towards the end. I mean, there is a little bit of wriggle room for if anybody does want to write any more. But yeah, I would say it's towards the end.
So what did
you reckon?
I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was I tend to like continuity heavy books. Maybe not quite this continuity heavy, but I appreciate the references, and the ones that I don't get, I like to try and look up and see what it is I might be not catching on to. But I enjoyed it. I thought the representation of the Time War was interesting, because you think about it, gosh, the Great Time War, and you think all the different ways that could play out, and does it almost limit one's imagination when you start putting constraints on it? But I feel the choices that George Mann made in this book, he did a good job in picking leaving so much open to interpretation still, but at least nailing down in this particular section of space and time. Here's what was going on. And it leaves the door open for others to contribute too, I think.
Yes, I mean, and he's adding stuff as well, sort of in the continuity, because it's not, in contrast to War of the Daleks, say, which tries to tie up quite a few kind of loose threads, and at least here we're adding things, we're seeding things, we're allowing for kind of new stories to be told, and we're not contradicting, as far as I can tell, old stories. So I think it's done with a relatively sort of deft touch, and certainly, I mean, the book does rattle on at a decent enough pace, and you do get these wonderful little kind of little vignettes, as it were, sort of with the memory lanterns and such like. The dialogue, we've not really kind of given much of a flavour of the dialogue, but it can be kind of quite sort of witty and punchy, particularly when the Doctor is having his debates with various Time Lords. There were one or two bits that I kind of found that I had to kind of reread once or twice, sort of in the early stages on Mordox, just trying to kind of sort of get the choreography of scenes right in my head. But no, it was a good read, and it must be quite a challenge writing about a Doctor who has only had about sort of 30 minutes screen time or so, and trying to kind of make a full story out of it, and also kind of introducing a companion. He does have a kind of, it's a high difficulty threshold for his companion.
I wonder too, and this might be in the there's a infographic book called Who Graphica that's out. I wonder if Paul McGann versus John Hurt, who's played the Doctor for longer on screen, minutes and seconds, because it's probably pretty close, because Paul McGann didn't show up until the last, not for the first half hour of the TV movie. And you've got the short War Doctor clip in Name of the Doctor, and then of course with Paul McGann you've got his little clip from Night of the Doctor too. But yeah, probably pretty close between the two of them.
Probably. I mean, I would say, like, when the War Doctor first appeared, not in the book but just generally, I was a bit like about it, because I liked the idea that it was Paul McGann's Doctor who ended up fighting the Time War. This guy who started out so full of hope and optimism that he was kind of battered down by the universe. I found that a really powerful and compelling idea. But I think the War Doctor is a very good and very clever addition to the mythos. Don't get me wrong. It's just to take a little bit of kind of getting out from my headcanon.
One of the concepts explored in this book is, as someone gets erased from the timeline, how your memories change to keep up with that. It's kind of like that in reverse, where you have to re-edit your what you'd previously thought.
Yes.
Yeah, you will get a little taste of that, I think, there's an upcoming Big Finish audio that's set with Paul McGann in the Time War, leading up to what happens in Night of the Doctor. I think that comes out this fall, in November 2017. So that might even add a little bit more to the mythos.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about the book specifically, or should we go ahead and rate this one?
Yeah, I don't think I've got anything else to say. So I think should we just get on to ratings?
Yeah, give this, and using the same scale that the original book club used, out of 10.
Yes.
I think I would give this one a solid 8 out of 10, which in the American school system would be a B effort, 80%. It added to the mythos of the Time War. It gave me a lot of insight, I thought, into the Doctor's character and mindset, and it kind of served as almost like a tragic prequel, I think, to one of my favorite stories of all time, the 50th anniversary special. And it did it in a way with that didn't change or alter my thoughts about the Time War. So it had a delicate line to walk, and I think he did a really good job with it. I would think like a 9 or a 10 would be something that just really is almost genre transcending, sort of. It's something that would work on its own, not as a Doctor Who concept, but just as a science fiction concept. I think that something like that would be like a 10 for me. But yeah, I give this one like a solid 8. How about yourself?
For me, I think it's a 7. I did enjoy it. I did kind of, because there wasn't any special kind of like sort of depth for things, because we do, because we have flashes of kind of like Cinder's past, and we occasionally have sort of Cinder kind of thinking, "Oh, it's jolly good that the Doctor's come along, and it means that I've been, I've not been making as much of a difference, but I will now." Her characterization isn't quite as deep as I'd hoped, but maybe I'm being unfair because this is a story not really about her as much as it is about telling these kind of latter stages of the time war. Yeah, no, I'll stick with a 7.
Yeah, I think a 7 is that's a decent rating too. So,
yeah.
It's I'm glad I read it.
Yeah,
and that's what counts. At this point in the podcast, we normally read any listener mail or feedback or tweets that we get. This being our first episode, we don't really have any of that yet. But if you do want to get in touch with us, you can send us an email at andwbcpodcast@gmail.com, or you can send us a tweet or follow us on Twitter at andwbcpodcast on Twitter. And you can also leave feedback on our Libsyn page, or now that we're on iTunes, you can leave us an iTunes review.
Every podcast says that it helps, so it must help.
It must help.
Yes. It helps the algorithm in some strange way. Yeah. So please do that.
Before we get to announcing what our book selection is for next month, I did want to mention too that something that we didn't talk about in episode 0 that we put out, kind of our introduction episode. There are 2 book selections that were chosen by the original Doctor Who Book Club podcast, but they had never completed. Originally for episode 58, so the Christmas episode last year, they were going to review Christmas on a Rational Planet, but that was replaced with The Last Resort. We're thinking way ahead. For December, we might want to do Christmas on a Rational Planet so we can get that one reviewed.
Yeah.
And then
start saving up for the reprint now, folks.
Yep, hopefully it'll be on ebook in some form at that point.
Sure.
And then the other one we're gonna get to is St. Anthony's Fire, which has the Doctor and Benny in it, and that was chosen as the final book selection in episode 60. So we'll hopefully get to that one this year as well.
And the Mark Gatiss one.
So do you want to go ahead and announce our book selection for April?
What we were wanting to do is, because Capaldi's back for one last season, alas, we want to do a 12th Doctor book. So we were having kind of like a rummage around the 12th Doctor novels and thought that it would be kind of cool to do Big Bang Generation, which is Gary Russell book featuring Benny Summerfield, who was a companion to the 7th Doctor and briefly the 8th Doctor from the Virgin books.
I was going to say that sentence could be used in more than one way.
Yes.
Yes. And so we're going to do Big Bang Generation by Gary Russell. Gary's going to be a guest at a local convention here in Minneapolis, St. Paul at the end of May called Council Room. It'll be nice too that I'll be able to say, hey, I've actually read your latest contribution to the Doctor Who universe. So I'm very much looking forward to that, and I'm hoping too that he makes some sort of contrast or distinction, or hopefully that River Song gets a mention at some point, because the 2 characters started out, there were a lot of kind of superficial comparisons between Benny and River, and that they were both archaeologists who knew the Doctor and had a past with him, but the 2 characters have diverged so much since then, but it'll be interesting to see if she warrants a mention or not. So that's what I'm going to be keeping my eye out for.
I've enjoyed quite a few of Gary's books, and sort of particularly Scales of Injustice, that I seem to remember didn't go down so well with the earlier version of this podcast. I might be wrong, but it'll be very interesting to see sort of how the 2 sort of encounter each other and how they get on. I was going to say, I mean, she's used to travelling with a cantankerous Scottish doctor, it'll be good to see.
I don't know that I've read a whole lot of Gary Russell's other work. I've read Legacy, which I think was a 7th Doctor Ice Warriors.
Yes, it was.
Adventure, yes. And then I also read Invasion of the Cat People, which was covered on the previous version of this podcast. Yes. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it'll be good. And so we'll hope to have that out in April time.
Right around the time that Capaldi comes back to our screens, I think.
Yes, yes. Well, he kind of came back to our screens last night because the trailer was for the new season was aired last night.
I saw that. It was
A trailer, yes. So yeah,
exciting stuff.
Yes, indeed.
It's been over a year, so.
Yes, it better be good. But I do very much kind of enjoy Moffat's take, so he'll be.
Likewise.
Yes.
All right. Well,
Cool.
Until next month, I've been Matt in Minnesota.
I'm Chris in South London. Happy reading, folks.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the all-new Adventures of the Doctor Who Book Club podcast. You can contact the show and follow us on Twitter at ANDWBC Podcast. Our music is the Doctor Who theme, Swing Jazz version by George C. Music, used with attribution under Creative Commons license. Until next month, happy reading.